Hey guys, we have a really awesome interview today. I had the privilege of interviewing Devora Wilde, who is the actress behind Lae'zel and the recently huge game Baldur's Gate 3. So please enjoy. I really appreciate you talking to me today. Would you be able to kind of give me like a brief summary of who you are and kind of how you got into acting in general, just so for myself and my audience?
Of course. Yeah. Well, my name is Devora Wilde and I am an actor. How I got into acting. Is that what you just asked me? Oh my God, my brain is not functioning.
No,
I got into acting. Well, I always wanted to be an actor, like since I was very young. But I kind of ended up doing, kind of going down the more traditional route because I have very like traditional parents that are doctors. So they wanted me to have like a safe, a safe career choice. So I ended up doing English, which is hysterical because that's not safe at all. Yeah. And then I did a master's in fashion journalism because that was something I was very interested in at the time. And then I went to drama school because I was like, right, actually acting is the thing I really want to pursue. I've done like the safe stuff, even though it was still like in the realms of creativity, but it was more like traditional, I suppose, than acting. And then I went to drama school and after that I've been acting ever since. So for the last 10 years.
That's really
10
awesome.
years this year.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, that's probably one of those really great feelings where you kind of dreamed for it as a child and then finally it comes into fruition. Where does fashion journalism fit in there for you? So did you actually like have a good amount of interest in fashion at some point?
I did. Yeah. I was studying, like I was about to start studying it at the time when fashion blogs were like really popular. It was like, it was around 2010, 2011 when like Facebook was sort of a thing, but it wasn't really a huge thing. Obviously, there was no Twitter, Instagram, nothing like that. And I think that's when the blogs were happening. So every morning I'd kind of wake up and I'd read all the different blogs that people had posted. And I'd like bookmarked them and I'd sort of open the tabs and see like who'd posted an update. It was very like old school now that I think of it. There wasn't like a way really that you'd be kept in touch or up to date if somebody had actually posted an update. So that'd be my little morning routine and I'd have a look and I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. Like I was interested in fashion anyway. And that was a way to sort of marry the two, my English background and my fashion interests. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And I started my own blog actually as well around the same time, sort of documenting my fashion exploits, I guess you could say. And and I guess that was almost sort of the start of social media, because those people then became quite big stars. Those people that had started the fashion blogs and they started getting invited to fashion weeks and they started getting sponsorships and stuff. So that was sort of the beginning of it.
Well, that's really cool. Do you have like any other hobbies? I know I've seen that you're like really into traveling. Do you have any other hobbies outside of that?
I'm very into traveling. Oh God. It's interesting. I like reading when I have time. Unfortunately, I don't have that much time anymore. I'd say traveling though is like the big one for me because I feel like when I was younger, I couldn't afford it. Yeah. And honestly, I was more interested in like going out, partying, like everyone is. Yeah. And I don't know, I just wasn't really into it. Maybe because it was always this thing of like, oh, it's unattainable because you have to have money to travel. And of course you do have to have money to travel. Yeah. Not always, but to have like a decent experience, you do. And I just couldn't afford it. Being a student and everything, I was just like, no. So, so I never really thought about it.
I'm kind of envious of your location in the world because it feels like you can probably travel the same amount of time I travel and experience so many more cultures and regions. And I travel like X amount of miles and I'm still within my same state. Like, everyone's all the same still. Like I live in Kansas, so I'm like in very flat lands. It's farm animals, cows, horses, donkeys.
Yeah, but in the US, you have so many different like you can experience all different kinds because it's so big. You don't have to really go out of the country to experience like different landscapes or different nature.
Yeah, there's lots of landscape. That's one thing I've heard from people I've interviewed is they're interested in how the US has so many different landscapes across it. Like you can go to mountains, you can go down to the beach, you can go to Death Valley or Grand Canyon. There's so many different environments. I have the issue is like I just love the history that is over where you're at because the US only has like this like 200 years or whatever it is.
Sure.
And so unless you're like really big into cowboys and throwing tea overboard, there's not really like a whole bunch going on, you know? What is your favorite location you've been to so far?
That's hard. That's a hard one because I'd be hard pushed to name a place that I didn't like.
We'll go with that too.
Yeah, I really liked Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked it. It was it wasn't a place on the top of my list simply because I had other places that I wanted to visit first, but it happened quite spontaneously a few years ago because some friends were going and I was just like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. Mm-hmm. Ended up really loving it. I'd love to go back. Where else have I really, really loved? Yeah. I'm trying to think of somewhere like fairly recent that. Peru. Peru was awesome. I was like, I knew there was somewhere that I've been like fairly recently that I really, really loved. Peru was absolutely incredible. Like food, scenery, landscapes, nature, people, loved it.
What are your favorite things about traveling? Because for myself personally, I just love the food and hitting up every museum or whatever I can find. I just love the history and trying new foods.
Yeah, listen, food is up there for me. It's gotta have good. It's gotta have good food, for sure. And I am a foodie, and I like to, eat anything and experiment, and I like to eat the local food. I'm not one of those people that's going to stay in a resort and just that's going to be my travel experience. I don't do that. But food, I guess, nature's a big one for me. So like in Peru, we did Machu Picchu, like hiking beaches. I love a good beach. Love a good beach.
See, I'm pretty landlocked. I don't know much about beaches.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I live on an island, but there's not very many good beaches here. Yeah.
If I was to visit your area, where would you tell me to like, you need to go eat here or you need to go visit here?
Oh, in London?
Yeah.
Do you know, we have a very nice park. That's not selling it very well. But the park is very nice.
Hey, parks can be wonderful.
Parks can be wonderful, and it's very nice. I'm just not particularly inspired right now because I'm looking out my window and it's grey.
Oh, is it dreary?
And it's like that. It's just very dreary, like typical. Like winter has now set in London. It's that kind of like in between period where it's not. They haven't switched on the Christmas lights yet. I don't think, at least not in my area. Maybe in central London they have, but it's just that kind of pre-Christmas like magic. But once the Christmas light, if you come to London like around Christmas, I would say you would have an amazing experience. Go and see all the Christmas lights. Go to Central. Walk under the sparkly lights. Maybe go to like a Christmas market. What other Christmassy things should you do in London? That wasn't the question, but I've turned it into
no, it's fine.
To do in London.
There's so.
Have you been to London?
No, but I've wanted. I bought a passport recently, and I've always. Yeah. I think I might. I mean, I got 10 years before that expires. So if I don't make it in 10 years, then I got a bigger issue going on. But yeah, it's so. Everything's just like so charming over there. I know I'm romanticizing it because like I've never been there, but just like there's like stairs or a door that's like 1,000 years old, and I'm like, that's incredible. That's a 1,000-year-old door.
Yeah, you
even
take
though
that for
it's
granted when you live here. Yeah.
yeah, even though it's not like a huge deal, but over here it's just kind of like 100 years might be pretty cool. But
yeah.
Speaking of traveling, how was Comic-Con?
Crazy. Like I don't think anyone expected how many Baldur's Gate 3 fans there would be.
There was a lot, wasn't there?
There was a lot. Yeah. I think we were all pleasantly surprised by how many people came and how many people stayed in massive long queues for several hours.
Oh yeah.
But it was great. I was exhausted, but it was great. I loved it. It was my first Comic-Con, so it was really, really special. Cool. Yeah.
And I loved how you and Jennifer wore the shirt. That was funny.
Well, listen, people asked for it on Twitter, and we decided to do it, and it was a lot of fun.
That's important. You listen to the fans.
We listened to the fans, but also I nearly guillotined Jen because we didn't realize how logistically difficult it would be to get in that t-shirt. And she thought of like a head smaller than me. So it was not comfortable. We sat down on that couch and we were like, are we going to do the whole interview like this? Yeah, we are. Okay, fine. Good. Fine. Yeah.
So the shirt on you might have been up here, but then on her, it was like, cover it. No, that's funny.
It was a big difference, but it was fun.
And so, like, with dealing with, interviews like the ones you're doing with me or going to Comic-Con or doing your work, how do you find that nice balance between your work and your personal life? Or is it kind of not as difficult because you love what you do, or what do you think?
Yeah, it's not as difficult because I don't really see my work as work in the traditional sense of like, oh, I have to go to work. Oh, it's such a chore. Like for me, it's not a chore because as an actor, you spend your first many years waiting to be busy. You're not busy. You're waiting for the phone to ring. You're waiting for things to happen. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're making things happen by yourself. Maybe you're doing a combination of the two. But you spend a lot of the time imagining or dreaming of this moment. So when it happens and when you get busy, you're kind of like, yeah, finally. Yeah. And I think a lot of our work bleeds into our personal lives, which is not necessarily a good thing. I find it very hard to switch off. I can't really set boundaries of like, this is my work day and then my work day finishes. Like I'm always doing stuff and I'm always, checking my emails or doing this or responding to people, which I don't think is particularly healthy, but I do it because, again, like I said, I don't really see this as work. But I sometimes, especially recently with all that's been going on, have found myself like having to say to myself, okay, like tonight, you're just going to watch film or we'll do whatever or switch off or have a coffee with a friend or, because otherwise it just becomes a bit too much,
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I don't do anything in the same realm as you, but I manage like IT for libraries, like multiple libraries within my state. And it's kind of that same thing where I love what I do. I love coming to work, working with all the libraries, knowing all the librarians, doing things to help my communities. But then when you go home for the day, it's kind of hard to shut off that I'm checking my emails to make sure nothing's going wrong or if anyone has a question for me. And so I think I kind of get what you're talking about, like just shutting off and not being in that work mode.
Yeah. And we're constantly connected, like with our phones and being constantly connected. I remember sometimes I think of the good old days when I was at school and we had like one computer at home and it's connected to the internet through a landline. So like to connect to the internet, you have to be like, okay, I'm connecting now. Nobody can use the phone. And, you actually can't use the internet for too long because sometimes you might have to have the phone free for a phone call. So it's not like we could be online all day. It'd literally be a set time of the day when I could go online, check my emails. Not that anyone was emailing at that time anyway. Nobody was doing that. It was to go online, like, I don't know, play The Sims, even though The Sims actually wasn't online, then you could just play it normally. But to do something or go on MSN Messenger, that's what we used to do back in the day. And then
I'm not that young. I know about that stuff.
you know about MSN Messenger.
No. Yeah, because especially growing up in a rural area, the technology like lags a little bit behind everyone else. And so, I mean, I think I graduated high school about the same time you were finished with college, I think. Because I was in 2013 when I graduated. So
I started drama school in 2013, 10 years ago.
Yeah. So I was born in the 90s. So I got the kind of the end of the, the cassettes, the dial-up, all of that sort of thing. So I got to experience that, which is kind of good. But like you said, with emails, at the beginning, emails were like a big deal. It'd be like, you got a message. And everyone's like, oh my God, I gotta go write them back.
Yeah.
And then MSN Messenger, man, that was huge. I used that all the time.
I know. It was cool. It was so it was such a novel thing. And it was like, wow, I can message my friends. But then I think I found you have to message them to be like, go online, like send them a text message to WhatsApp, send them like a text message, be like, go online, go on MSN now so we can chat. But it was just, I don't know, it was just like a fun thing to do. And then the rest of your life was like existed in the real world. And now it's like flipped. It's so weird. And it's not really healthy. But I, like a lot of people, I'm so obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with social media apps and TikTok and funny things and things that take your attention away. But then sometimes I'm like, wait, I'm spending more of my time online than I am offline, which is probably not good.
I get you there. And not to get too personal, but I know you've had your own child, correct?
Yes, I have.
How have you thought about how you are going to balance that with your child not being on technology too much and whatnot?
Yeah, I have actually. And we're consciously now trying to keep her away from screens. So if we want to play her music or stuff, I play it through the phone, but I turn the screen down so that she can hear it, but she can't see the moving images. Because I think that there will come a time inevitably, whenever, that she will, of course, be watching TV or a screen. But I'm just very conscious of trying to make that push that as far as I can away in time, because then I know that she's probably going to have the rest of her life to be in an incredibly technologically saturated world, even more so than my world is. And she's going to have that throughout her school and everything, whereas I didn't have that at school. And I was very lucky. So that's why now I'm trying to not show her these things. And she's still at the age where she doesn't really need it. She can look at a book and she can be very interested and satisfied by that, or a little toy or something. So she doesn't need to be looking at screens at the moment. But it's hard, I think, because I can see now why parents do show their children screens, because it's easy and you're tired and you're exhausted, and it is so much easier to give your child
here's your tablet, and then let them go play with things.
Trust me, the temptation is so real. At certain points, it's so real. It's like, oh, why don't I just give her the phone? But then I'm like, okay, it's fine. I can just fight the temptation. But I get it. I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, because I've considered that many times, because there are some very real implications with technology and the developing of children, from just because it's that constant dopamine release when people are on social media or watching videos just like on demand. And it's so different. It's such a different kind of world. Because like you said, with both of us, we kind of grew up in that area where you had to go ring your friend's doorbell. You want to come out and play and stuff like that. And it's really different. There's like kids getting cell phones and stuff now. And
really very young children as well.
Phone, and I had to press the same number like 3 times just to get to the right letter.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now I kind of want to get more into the voice acting, or sorry, not the voice acting, your acting in general, because you do a lot of acting, and especially with this game, it was nowhere near just voice acting. It was like honest just acting.
Yeah, and we're calling it acting now. The cast now has been credited as actors, not voice actors, because the truth is that we didn't just do the voice. We did the motion capture as well. I mean, we did the full performance for the characters. Exactly. So it's not fair to call it voice acting. And also, the more that I've done in this realm of video games, the more I've realized that it's not just voice. You're actually putting everything into it, but people can't necessarily see the end product. But you are putting, you're using the same skills that you would use to act for a TV or a film, product. But you just, for this particular thing, you're only hearing the voice. But yeah, for Baldur's Gate 3, we did the full performance.
Games in general, I know you mentioned The Sims earlier. What was like kind of your first introduction to games?
The Sims.
Was it The Sims? Okay, The Sims is great. I like The Sims.
And it was I think that's the only thing I ever played, actually, The Sims. I was obsessed with it.
You play the new ones at all?
I don't, but you know what? Now that I've started like streaming Baldur's Gate 3 and I'm like, God, I would love to actually play and possibly stream The Sims. But I'm a bit like wondering whether it's changed too much from the old version. Maybe you can tell me.
I see.
Has it?
Well, I mean, I'd say the original games were harder than the ones now. Because it feels a little so easy. Like, I don't know, when I play The Sims, sometimes I kind of want a challenge because then there's one time, sometimes I'm playing it, I just want to have fun and make a character and let them do everything. And then there's other times where I'm like, you know what? I've played like multiple characters now, and why is it so easy for my guy to go from like unemployed to CEO of a company? Like, I want to make it feel a little bit more like real. So I've had to download mods to like reduce how much pay my character gets and stuff like that to really make it feel fun. Because I don't know about you, but when I play The Sims, once my character hits like their dream and gets to the top of their career, it kind of feels like it's over on that. So I personally just like restarting and slowly bringing them up. But I don't know. How do you play it?
Right. So when I used to play, I found the cheat code where, open up a little box and you could give the character unlimited money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I just used to give the character unlimited money. And then I used to just spend, I think that actually this is what I used to do from memory. I just used to spend hours building their houses. And then once the houses were built, I was a bit like, okay. Now I'm gonna make a new character and I'm gonna give them unlimited money and I'm gonna build them another house.
So you that's really what I did. That aspect of building the houses and kind of making a perfect little. Do you like furnish it as well?
Oh yeah, because then obviously when you have unlimited money, you can give them like the best tables and chairs and stuff. And then because I was like, I'm not interested in building them a small little house and then sending them off to work and waiting to get the money. I was like, give it to me immediately. And I don't even know how I discovered this concept of cheat codes, because when I discovered it, I was like blown away. I was like, what? You can just type this little thing in and get unlimited money. I'm sure everyone knew this, but I was like, wow. Well,
cheat codes were rare things back then because you had to find them in magazines. Or if the websites are around, that's when you found. Because I remember they were like, where
I found them.
They were like, for me, cheat codes and secrets were like a playground thing. Like it'd be like, hey, what about this? And it's like, oh no, I've never seen that before. Or, did you know you could do this? So that was really cool.
Probably somebody told me. Yeah.
That being your first game, and now we're looking at Baldur's Gate 3. That game really exceeded my like I knew it was probably going to be good because Larian was making it and I love Larian's work, but it kind of went beyond. Like it really set a bar for me, like because there was another game I was excited for it to come out later the year, but then Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and then so when I finally got to play that other game I was excited about, I'm like, this isn't I'm just not hitting for me. It doesn't feel like an RPG like this. It kind of really ruined a few other games for me, unfortunately. And I've seen you've been playing it yourself. How are you like enjoying it so far? I'm
loving it, and the more I play it, the more I fall in love with it, and the more I think about it, and I'm like, if I didn't have the baby, I'd probably be playing it a lot more, because the more you get into the story and you meet other characters and you get deeper into it and you're discovering things, and it's the kind of game that I enjoy because it's rooted in storytelling and exploration and stuff. Like I've said before, I'm not a gamer at all, and I haven't really played games since The Sims. But having said that, I don't think that I would pick up a game like I don't know, a first-person shooter or something. I don't think that would be very interesting for me. I would prefer something that's rooted in narrative, which Baldur's Gate 3 is heavily, and so I'm loving it. Loving it, and I'm loving seeing everyone's performances and people that I know's performances and how they interact and how they sort of come together and and just like make up the story. It's great, and seeing how my character fits into the story, because we recorded all these lines, but we recorded them so out of order that there's just a lot of things that I don't remember, or I don't know where they fit into the story. And so I feel like I'm discovering it brand new, which is very cool.
And that must have been really challenging to record scenes out of order while trying to maintain where that character should be and their development, if that makes sense. Like for example, how she might behave at the end of the game after she's been through all this crap versus, you know, the beginning of the game. I feel like they definitely give you context, correct? On forward.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we did do the game out of order, but not crazy out of order. So when we were recording the very start of the game, we knew that it was only early access, so it was only Act 1. So I'd never be doing stuff like at the end of the game. And then the character was slowly sort of getting written, you know, so I was discovering things as it was getting written. So although we'd be jumping around within a set sort of parameters, so not too crazy. And then sort of towards the end, obviously we've got more of the game now. Well, we've got all of the game. So then we might be jumping maybe back to something in Act 1, like to fix it or something, to do like a patch, and then back to the end. So that's when the really big leaps were happening. But by that point, I obviously had a lot more knowledge of the game and a lot more knowledge of the world and the characters and the situations and the scenes. Whereas at the beginning, when we started, literally every single scene, I'd have to be like, right, stop there. Please give me a whole load of context, because I had no context of Dungeons and Dragons, no context of anything. So I had to be given a lot of background on everything, and a lot of background on what the other characters were, what they could do, what the situation was, what the tadpoles were, what that was. And then by the end of the game, I'd be like, okay, I know this scene, I know what's happening, don't worry about it. But yeah, it was slow at the beginning because I just had no knowledge.
Did they try to keep yours? Like, I know you said they kind of jumped around, but not too much. Were there any times where the scenes were very different from each other, or did they try to keep them kind of in that same tone? Like, if you had like a really emotional scene, would you follow it up with like if you're really angry in this scene, and then would you follow it up with I'm sad now, or now would it be casual? Or
we jump around all over the shop. Like sometimes you do like a really emotional scene, and then you might jump to one of those scenes where it's like, oh look, a lock, a chest. What shall I do with the chest? Like stuff like that. Just because there wasn't time to really group them together like that. There's so many characters. There's so many of us in the game. I think if they had to group them like that, then that would have been extra work for them. And honestly, for us, like we got used to it. I mean, I got used to doing like working that way, and I didn't mind it because once I had context, I could figure it out, and it was fine for me to jump around like that. So it wasn't too much of an issue.
I think,
and you know what?
awesome.
Actually, when you're doing TV and film, you also film out of order, so it's not that different.
See, that just shows how
I'm
ignorant to that process. So, but that's really cool. I feel like that's just like a testament to like your guys' skill and being able to evoke emotions out of nowhere. And I actually have a question for that. When you have to evoke questions or feelings and make them believable, do you bring on personal stories perhaps? Like if you have to be sad, do you ever think to something that makes you sad, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think every actor has their own process. But ultimately, for me, I think it's much easier if you connect to something personal, because that's going to bring out the real emotion. I think if you are pretending, I know we're pretending, we're acting, but if you are trying to bring that out from a place that's not authentic, then it's probably going to show. So it's best to try, at least for me, the way that for me it works, and I found that I get the most authenticity in my performance, is to try and connect to something, whether it be a happy place or a sad place, wherever that emotion is coming from, to try and root it in something that's real. And I know that we're dealing with a very heightened, unreal situation, obviously a fantasy world, but then that's even more important than to root it in reality, because otherwise you run the risk of playing an emotion, and that's never going to come across as real ultimately.
Yeah, and it really makes, like you said earlier with the narrative, and just the importance of how well the whole cast delivered their lines really sets the immersion. If I'm playing it and they come across like, "Hey, I'm Lae'zel," it's not gonna be believable. You're not gonna be in that world. And so I was curious, do you think that video games have the potential to be the best medium to tell stories?
I mean, yeah, from what I've seen of our game and what it's done, and you know what, the way it's affected people, that's what really got me. Seeing people that came up to me at Comic-Con and had genuine emotional reactions to this game, I was like, wow, I didn't know video games could do that. Yeah. And now I'm seeing people come up to me saying stuff like, "You have no idea, this game's got me through such a tough time," or "I've been through so and so, and your Lae'zel's helped me get through that." And I was like, I genuinely never thought that could be a thing when I was recording this game. So yeah, they definitely have the potential to be the storytelling medium, especially because the sky's the limit really when you have this kind of video game medium, because you can create anything and any character, and also it's incredibly inclusive really, because we're not necessarily being judged on how we look. We're creating a performance, but it's not us really physically, as in our physical looks. It's our physical bodies and our voices, but it's not our looks. And I think that can be incredibly freeing and incredibly inclusive. And that's why I think you'll find the Baldur's Gate 3 community is one that is very inclusive and diverse, and everybody's free to be whoever they want. And that's what I found, again, meeting people at Comic-Con, and I loved that. And I loved that everyone was so welcoming and kind to each other. I've yet to experience, touch wood, I've yet to experience any unkindness in the community, which I think is brilliant. Yeah, it's very heartwarming.
Yeah, it is really nice. Like, everyone in the community seems to really just enjoy everything about the game, and especially their characters are incredibly beloved. And I constantly see fan art, or people just talking about how much they love Lae'zel or Astarion, or it's kind of weird, particularly Astarion. I see a lot of people talking about Neil's character.
The Astarion love is real. The Astarion love is real. Yeah. So is it for all the other characters, but there's something about vampires that people love.
Yeah, right. I think it's not to say that the other characters aren't as loved, but I just assume that
everyone, but this is what I love as well, right? Everyone has their favorite, and but it's not the case of oh, I've got my favorite and the rest of you are really shit. Oh, I've got my favorites, but actually I really appreciate the other cast members, but this is my favorite, and that's fine. It's not like, oh, I've got my favorite, and I'm gonna poo-poo everyone else, and that's really good. That's a really healthy way of doing it, and I love that. I love that everybody can have their favorite character and identify with a character and their story and have that. It's almost like here's this cast of characters, which one resonates with you and which one connects with you, and then that's your like companion throughout the game. And how incredible is it to have that sort of companion that you can personally connect with?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because for me personally, my favorites were yours and Jennifer's and Neil's characters, you know, and Shadowheart. And it's funny how in real life you guys are friends, but in the game you kind of, you know,
I know, yeah. Yeah, we're all friends in real life, but yeah, in the game I'm not really friends with anyone, apart from Karlach. I think Lae'zel and Karlach are like besties, you know, because she respects Karlach as a warrior, but everyone else I'm just like, no thank you. Well,
and I find it interesting that so many people find Lae'zel as like, because I saw people call her evil, and I even saw an interview you did where they were like telling you that Lae'zel was like lawful evil or something. And in my mind, it's like, just because somebody has their own like belief system and is trying to save their own life and protect their people doesn't make them I mean, the way she went about it wasn't the best, but it wasn't like she was ever like murdering people in cold blood or anything like that. So I don't understand why people are label her as that.
It's you know what before I'd play, first of all, I've recorded all the lines. I know what she's made of, and she's certainly not evil. She is somebody that's very scared and probably the most set on this mission to get rid of this tadpole, because she knows that's her ultimate, the worst case scenario for her has happened. So imagine your worst case scenario, whatever that might be. It could be, you know, it's probably going to be something really horrible if you really think about what's the worst that could possibly happen to you, and that's happened. So that's one thing. And I've recorded her lines, and I don't think that there's anything in there that's
I don't think so either. It's so just evil. Weird that so many people thought that. I mean,
it's weird. And it's weird because now I've played the game, because then, okay, first of all, I said I recorded the lines, and then people were asking me that question. I was like, okay, well, you know, maybe I haven't played the game, so maybe the way she comes across in game is different. Now I've played the game, or I've played part of the game, and I'm like, I don't see where any of this is coming from. Am I crazy?
She might be a little rude, but not evil. Like,
but even that, I was like, okay, maybe I'm biased. Maybe because I love Lae'zel, she's my character, and I love her. But even on the Nautiloid and stuff, I'm a bit like, okay, she's quite what's the word? She's quite sort of abrupt with you. She's like, listen, this is what you have to do. If you want to get rid of this tadpole, this is what we have to do. We have to do this. There's no time. We have to do this. But she's not, I wouldn't call her like, oh my God, she's so awful. So I don't know why people are saying that. But again, look, I'm biased.
I get you. But I mean, I don't think your bias is making you like wrong or anything like that, because it's like what you said earlier, and I've even seen you say it before. I think you said it on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it now.
X.
Yeah, I think you. X. I think you said that she's literally just scared. It's like the worst thing that's ever happened to her, but she's still willing to take you to save you too. And Ethergith Yankee would probably just kill you, because there's multiple run-ins with Ethergith Yankee that are like, get away from me or you're going to die. Lae'zel is more like, hey, help me, I'll help you, let's do this. But she just doesn't want to mess around. Like, she's just like, let's do this, let's go now, this is what we need to do, like you said. So it's not like, it's not evil, it's just somebody that wants to get something done because their life is at risk.
Well, if you think about the central premise of the game, right, the game starts with you being infected by a tadpole, by an illithid tadpole, okay? So to me, it seems like the central premise of the game is you have to get rid of this tadpole, and the characters talk about it from the very start. We have to get rid of it because, you know, and I think Lae'zel even tells you this is going to happen. We're going to turn into mind flayers, and that's not a good thing. So if you think about the central premise of the game, we have to get rid of like simplistic. We have to get rid of the tadpole. That's the premise of the game. So she is the character that's basically like, forget all about the pretty, the pretty beaches and the, all of the rest of the stuff that you're going to see. We've got a mission and we should get to it. Of course, there's going to be side quests and side missions and people that we meet and other and potentially fun stuff. But she is the character that's like, no, I need to do my central mission, which is to get rid of the tadpole. So she is that character. There are going to be other characters who are like, actually, hang on, I want to have a little look around here and have a little play and do this and do that. But she's just the character that's keeping you on the mission.
Yeah.
And that's a
she's
good
just
thing,
very determined. It is a good thing.
Very determined and very focused. Yes.
And honestly, I don't know if you've done anything bad in the game yet, but to me, it is like I tried to do an evil playthrough. It is so hard because
is it?
People, I mean, to me, like when somebody looks at me with like sadness and I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry, dude. Like, cause there's a scene.
You mean it's hard because you become emotionally, right.
Yeah, because
I think you meant it's hard as in, yeah.
Yeah, because there was a scene where like, I think Will wanted to dance with my character and I was like, no, I don't want to dance or something like that. And you turn him down and he just gets this like incredibly sad, disappointing face. He's just like, oh, okay. Like, and it's like, man, that hurt. Like,
yeah,
so they feel like real characters just because, again, your guys' skill in the voice acting, but also the, engineers behind the scene doing the great, facial animation.
Yeah,
you guys didn't do facial animations. You just
we didn't do the facial. We didn't do facial capture. So that's the amazing cinematics team that did that. And yeah, I agree with you. It's really, I mean, listen, on my playthroughs, I have done quite a few evil things, but we're not going to talk about that. But yeah, I agree with you that it is I'll tell you actually the scene where I found it really hard. And I remember recording this scene and like actually really enjoying it. But then when I saw it, I was like, oh, I feel kind of bad. Mm-hmm. The scene where in the Emerald Grove, and one of the tieflings comes up and I can't remember the tiefling's name, but it's the scene where Lae'zel's like, in Kresh Kalir, a formal greeting begins with a bow, and he's like, carrot. Do you know the scene I mean?
I don't know. See, that's the beauty of the game. I don't know if I've seen that scene yet.
Well, it's this anyway. She's like, "Oh, you've seen Githyanki somewhere. Tell us where." And he's like really scared, and she's basically just like bullying him into revealing where he's seen the Githyanki and sort of revealing all this information, even though he tells Lae'zel that one of his kin has been murdered, and she's there like doesn't give a shit. Basically, he's just like, I don't care, just tell me about the Githyanki. And when I recorded that scene, I was like, okay, I'm enjoying Lae'zel's power, I'm enjoying her dominance and stuff. But when I saw that scene playing out, I was a bit like, oh, I feel kind of bad, actually. Mm-hmm. I feel kind of bad for this because it was so well acted and so real that me as the player, I was a bit like, oh, no, that doesn't quite sit right with me. But then with some other characters, I'm just like, I don't care, I'm going to be evil.
And I also thought I thought it was hilarious when your reaction when you finally started romancing your own character.
Oh my God.
So funny.
Well, because first of all, it was very sudden. And second of all, like I said, I've recorded these lines because some people were like, well, how does she not remember that she recorded the lines? Yes, I did. But first of all, some of them were a very long time ago. Second of all, I don't know where in the game they happen. And I don't know if I have a third point. I don't know if I have a third point, but anyway, that's the point. So when it happened, no, this is the third point. Third point is I didn't know, I haven't seen the scene like with the cinematics. So I was like, what? Excuse me. Yeah. Bearing in mind, I had the nudity toggled off. So even with that, I was like, I can't even imagine if it was toggled on. So anyway, it was those three combination of factors that made me like go, oh my God. Yeah, it's crazy.
I was kind of surprised. There's certain because there's a lot of the scenes are very like, I guess you'd call like soft core. What do you want to call it? They're not like too bad. But then there are some scenes where I'm just like, wow, they actually put that in the game. I didn't think they would do that, but I suppose it is.
I think I'm going to come up to some of those scenes. I've only had that romance scene so far, but I'm guessing that because my progress is quite slow through the game, so I'm guessing that soon I'll discover some of those scenes. Maybe even with a particular bear that I've heard is quite spicy.
I have not done any bear scenes myself, so I'll be interested to see how. Yet. With Lae'zel or any character you look at, what would you say creates a compelling protagonist?
It's a really good question. That's a really good question.
Thank you.
That's probably one of my favorite questions I've ever got.
Thank you.
Because it's making me really think about it. Okay, a compelling protagonist. Somebody that's rooted in authenticity. So even with Lae'zel, who is obviously an alien from Kresh Kalir, different plane, she is still actually somebody that a lot of people can relate to. In terms of, she's very young, actually. I think she's the youngest of all the companions, which is hysterical because I'm definitely not. But she's very young. I think she's meant to be maybe 17 or 18. She's very insecure. She's very eager to prove herself. So a character that people can relate to at their very core. And like we've talked about already, she's scared and you know, all the stuff that comes with it. So authenticity, a character that their complexity is reflective of our complex human experience. And I think really those two things, and a character that you're drawn to when you're kind of reading them and finding out about them. So I think as long as the character is kind of rooted in that reality, then you've got a compelling protagonist.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What would you say is probably your most challenging role to date? Would it be this one, or was there another work you've done in the past?
Right. Probably, definitely this. Actually, yeah, I've got two. So this one for sure. This one for sure in terms of the fact that she's an alien. So we had to come up with movements that were both alien but also realistic and rooted in reality. Again, I'm coming back to that thing. The Githyanki language, which comes up more and more as the game progresses. So that was a challenge. And I think making a character that is so, we've talked about this, right? She's quite standoffish at the beginning. She's not evil, but yes, she can come across quite rude and dismissive. But making sure that is rooted in, again, reality and showing that she's not doing that just for the sake of being like a bitch or whatever. She's doing that because of some underlying reasons and slowly letting the vulnerability creep in. So it was challenging for those myriad of reasons, but it was also incredibly exciting for me as an actor to play this kind of character for those very same reasons. I also did a film a few years ago now called A Precious Life, where I play a conductor, an orchestra conductor. And I'd forgotten about this, and I'd forgotten about how incredibly challenging that was, because you look at a conductor and you think, wow, they're doing it with such ease and so effortless. And at the time, I had to actually conduct an orchestra, and I got up in front of them, and they couldn't keep time from what I was doing. And I was like, right, this is not as easy as it looks, is it? It's one of those, not as easy as it looks. I think, and it just made me realize, like, the things that we look at other people and they seem so effortless are actually the hardest things, because it's a real skill to convey that effortless nature. And that was certainly the case with that film as well. So I learned that the hard way.
I'd say with kind of like with a lot of things, when you see somebody doing something effortlessly or masterfully, you see that, but you don't see how much they practice or how much they've struggled, you know? So,
absolutely.
And I guess for my last question, what is a tip or philosophy that has helped you in acting or life in general?
Not giving up even when you really want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the key. If you really believe in something and you want it, and you really believe that you're meant to do it, then you just have to pursue it through the lows. That because there will inevitably be lows, and they're probably going to be more lows than highs, especially at the beginning. But you just sticking with it when you're just like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what am I doing with my life? The number of times I've said that to myself, like, what am I doing with my life? Like, why don't I just go and get like a normal job, a normal person, and have like a normal steady salary and just forget about all this, stuff that I'm doing. The number of times I've had that and have crying hysterically because I'm just like not where I want to be or not where I think I should be, which is stupid anyway, because it's all an idea that you have in your head. Just sticking with it, stick with it, and know that it will happen as long as you're doing it for yourself and for the right reasons. Yeah. That's
great. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. I really do appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And I really look forward to, perhaps it'd be awesome to see Lae'zel again, but just maybe any work you do in the future. And hopefully I get that chance to speak to you again. Yes. Yeah. There's a few, projects coming up for me, but I can't talk about any of them, unfortunately. NDA, of course. Yeah, but they are exciting, and hopefully I can talk about them soon. That'll be cool. Thank you so much for your time. You have a wonderful day. Thank you. Yeah, lovely to meet you. Take care. Bye.